Everybody with Angela Williamson is made possible by Fireheart Pictures and viewers like you. Thank you. All children can benefit from mindfulness. The Mindfulness in School project suggests that well-conducted mindfulness interventions can help young people be more focused, reduce anxiety, and gives children the ability to manage behavior and emotions. Tonight, we talk to our former educator and international best-selling author to find out how we can develop these skills in our children. I'm so happy you're joining us.
From Los Angeles, this is KLCS PBS. Welcome to Everybody with Angela Williamson, an innovation, arts, education, and public affairs program. Everybody with Angela Williamson is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you. And now your host, Dr. Angela Williamson.
Denise McCormick is our guest. Mindfulness is a part of who you are. Can you tell us, before we get to your children's book, Never Mind the Mucky Mind, can you tell us what does mindfulness mean to Denise and how did you start walking this path?
Mindfulness means to me the message of my children's book, that what you say to your mind will then say to you. It all starts with your words, which you have the power to choose. And Angela, I have a very powerful story of how I started on my mindfulness journey before I even knew what mindfulness was. I was 13 years old, and we were out golfing. We heaved our golf bags on our shoulders, a group of 4 girls one day. And we got to the 4th hole, and Terry, who was not with us that day, lived right by the golf course. So she came, we went up and over to talk with her. We were unaware that one of our friends was going to go ahead and take her shot. I was standing right by Kathy, and then myself and Mary. And the ball hit Kathy in the head. And I went blistering pace to the golf course and got some help for her. We found out that night she was resting quietly. The next morning I left for vacation for a week. That afternoon, she told her mother she was tired, and she went to lie down. And she passed away from a brain aneurysm, the autopsy said. So I was gone the week of the funeral. There was no processing, there was no any of that. I came back a week later, and when I found out, I stumbled up to my bedroom and plopped down on the bed with my quote books and my Bible passages, and I had to figure out, because I came from a very dysfunctional family, how I was going to process this in my own mind. And that is the day I really feel like I had a spiritual transformation, because I became a woman with a Y that day. And I actually have a talk that I did as a Worldwide Women Speak Circle leader on both my website and YouTube that chronicles this journey of what I did that day. And I decided that choices must be positive in my life. And I started visualizing what I wanted to do in my life as if it had already happened. And I went after goal after goal after goal. And by the end of my senior year, I was the Danforth Foundation Outstanding Leadership Award. And I knew it was just the beginning of my service to the world.
Well, I have a few questions to ask you based on that powerful story. First, explain to us what that award means and how do they find recipients like yourself at such a young age to receive that award. So tell us about that first.
It's contingent on all the things, the contributions you make throughout your high school years. And I was just involved with everything. And not only did I believe in being a good student and a student at the high school, but I was active in my community. I started playing at church at 12. And I was just active in all kinds of community things too. And so I think they saw in me, they had a belief in me early, and I always borrowed my mentor's beliefs till I believed in it myself. And that's another mindful thing that you can do. Seek out positive people and positive reading, because whatever you say to your mind believes. And that's what a lot of people don't realize.
And so my question to you is, we're going to go back to that tragic week, and you deciding that you were going to change the way that you were thinking to make positive choices. But in that story, you mentioned that even though your family was a dysfunctional family, you were still able to turn it around for the positive. A lot of people will be watching, and they may have grown up in that type of dysfunction too. So how do we turn that around, and what gave you the power to do that at such a young age? Because the dysfunction is an energy that's stronger than you being a functioning person. So how do you do that?
Well, it's by saying positive things to yourself. So I would read my quote books every day, and this is still a practice I have in my morning on purpose now, but I didn't know what it was then. And see, do you see where my impetus to teach children this comes from? Because they're not going to have an experience like I had. I was very, sometimes a really tragic thing can be a fortunate thing for you. If you have a growth mindset and you can say, what can I learn from this? Kathy wanted to be an astronaut. She came from a wonderful family that would have given her that support. Well, I just decided to honor her life and her legacy by making my own. And that's a story I'm also putting in the book you and I are doing together. That's launching on October 26th. That's part of my story with that.
So tell us what the name of that book is.
It's called Leading with Legacy. And a legacy is what a person leaves behind, how they'll be remembered. And so I decided to honor Kathy that I would leave my life with legacy. And so that's how I did it.
And you talked about a growth mindset. And I mean, how does a young person, just barely starting her teens, that goes through this, tragedy and loses one of your dear friends, how do you develop that growth mindset?
I think I'm really fortunate because I love to read. And so because I read a lot of things, biographies, I was always looking to mentors beyond my realm of where I was. And so I read, I sought out good mentors that I borrowed their belief till I believed in myself, and I still do this. And people do it for me and I do it for them. And so once I found out that I could set a goal and make it, I just went, ooh, that's how it works. You make a picture in your mind, you visualize what you want it to be, and then you believe it's going to happen. And I have time after time after time in my life. In fact, in Women Who Shine, I wrote about 6 decades of mindset. And I talked about a tragedy or an adversity that I'd gone through and how I used mindset to get me through that. And I did it in Women Who Impact because I showed how my husband and I went through 10 years of the farm crisis by visualizing what we were going to do and how we were going to get through it, and we did. And so many people lost their farms. But, that's when I went back into education, Angela. And, I would get up at 4 in the morning. It takes the work. Jack Canfield says, everything you want is out there waiting for you to ask. Everything you want also wants you. And I found that out because I said, if I want it and it comes to me, well, it must want me too. But you have to take the action. So I was a really hard worker. And I found that work, if you are working towards a goal, no matter how long it takes, and that's a growth mindset, you just keep saying, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting better, and this will happen.
So you mentioned 2 things that I want to follow up on before we end this segment, because people might not remember. So I want you to tell us a little bit about that farm crisis that you wrote about in your first book, and how that impacted friends of yours in the state of Iowa, how that impacted you, because people may think, I think I've heard something, but to refresh our memory would be really wonderful, because then it would show your growth mindset of getting through something that was that challenging.
Well, that's why I wrote that story, Angela, because I felt like not just the United States, but I felt the world didn't understand why that crisis happened. So I also gave the background of what caused it, and that it was totally out of the farmer's control of everything that happened. But we had so many awful things happen. There were suicides, and there were shootings, and people were losing 4 generations of their life's work. And I said to my husband, what do you want to do? And he said, we can make it. It's going to take us a long time. That's when I went back to school. So I would get up at 4 in the morning. I would study to get my education degree. I had 2.5 years of college before this hit. And I would study then, get our kids off to school. They were in grade school. Then I'd go to classes. I'd study at the library. I'd come home, take care of them, and do that. And I was a 4.0 student. And I learned that I had this goal that I couldn't be an average to get a job, and we needed the income from me. And so I just said, I'm going to use my mindset, and visualize that I can do this. And sure enough, I got a great job afterwards. And I've been a teacher for 26 years and then a college professor for 10.
We are going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about now your journey to make sure children have these skills to help them move through their life as well. So stay with us, and we will be right back to chat. Thank you.
No 2 days are alike. So every day, you prepare. For yourself, for those you love, for whatever the day may bring. Being prepared is a part of who you are. But in the case of a disaster, preparation isn't always front of mind. In an emergency, when help and resources may not be available for days, being prepared is more important than ever. It's up to everyone to be informed about what types of emergencies might occur where you live or visit. Knowing the best responses for your personal circumstances is the key to maintaining your health, safety, and independence. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency and how a personal support network can assist you. Build a kit that contains the specific things you need to survive for several days: food and water, medication and supplies, as well as any important documents you may need. Being prepared is a part of who you are, and disaster preparation is no different. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Be informed, make a plan, build a kit, get involved. ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome to America's Test Kitchen at home.
At home.
At home.
At home.
At home.
This year, we're bringing it all back home
Ta-da!
with great new recipes,
It's cheese time.
I hated tuna fish when I was a kid.
ingredients, and gear,
Here's mud in your eye.
and your favorite test cooks.
Today, I want to talk about my tank.
Cooking in their own kitchens. America's Test Kitchen at home.
It's really good.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. Alright, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack!
Tommy? Don't stop. Keep playing.
from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Thank you for watching KLCS Los Angeles.
Denise, tell us how recently you used this mindfulness process and how that worked for you to have an amazing experience.
Well, about a year ago, I really wanted to see Donny Osmond in concert because I had first seen him when I was 8 years old and he was 5 years old on the Andy Williams Show. So I had been watching his career for 60 years and I said, I'd really like to see him in Las Vegas before he stops doing shows. And sure enough, this year when we're coming out to do the premiere of Authentic Conversations, Deep Talk with the Masters that Angela has done as a documentary, she said, well, I think there might be a way that we could go to Las Vegas. Let's set up a time for a show. And so I started saying to my mind that I believed that I was going to get to sing with Donny Osmond. And I told her, I told my husband, I told my virtual assistant, I told several other people. And I didn't know how it's going to happen. Now with mindfulness, you don't have to know how it's going to happen.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
You just put it out there and just let it unfold.
Okay.
So we went to Donny's show on Saturday night, and I'm sitting there at the part where they allow the audience to choose songs that they'd like. And I'm not even really thinking, I'm trying to think, well, what song would I like for him to do? And pretty soon he comes down off the stage and he's coming towards me. And I'm going, and my friend is behind me going, Denise has been waiting to see you in concert for 60 years. And he goes, well, where you been? And he asked me where I was from, and I said Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And he asked what song, and I told him. He took my hand and he led me up to the stage where he started singing to me. Then he danced with me, and then we joined together at the end of the song. It was like I believed that that was going to happen, and it did. And I can give you so many examples of that throughout my life.
And you make it sound so easy. Because most of the time, I think when we put out to the universe what we want, most of the time it's probably negative because we have so many thoughts running through our heads. What's 80, 60?
60 to 70,000 every day.
And most of that's negative.
80% negative.
80%, that's where I got the 80 from. 80% negative. So, I mean, to put something out in the universe that's positive is, I mean, we don't even think that we can do that. But this has been something, I mean, we're using this phenomenal example, but this has been something you had to put in practice during times of tragedy or major hurt in your life. So tell us how you did that.
Well, it's just because I did it at 13 and I saw it work through my high school years. Then I did it through my 20s. Each decade I had long-term goals and short-term goals. And I would write them down, that's important. And I would visualize them coming to fruition, and every single time I got through that. And so, you know, raising children and then going through the farm crisis and then going to get my master's. And then I started traveling around the world with students. I put this out to the universe. I would like to travel the world. Well, I got a phone call from the college from a woman that said, you've been nominated to be a people-to-people student ambassador leader. So I took middle school students for 5 summers to 10 countries around the world. And I got to do this before I ever was able to pay for my own trip, because we had kids in college, but it was done. I mean, so there's another example. I have example after example after example.
But you have a wonderful example of how you used it that brings you to Jack Canfield. So
yes.
Explain to us that
Okay.
experience, and then also to refresh our audience
Okay.
about who Jack Canfield
Yes.
is.
One of the most tragic things that happened after I retired from my, actually I use the word redirect, not retire.
Yes.
I got that from a professor. It was my mother died suddenly in January, right after I retired. And then my nephew took his life 10 days later. And I entered what I call the dark night of my soul, because it was very, very tragic, and it was very difficult, everything that I had to do as the executor of my mother's estate. So by August, I said to my husband, I need to get my spirit back. And I meant my mindfulness, my positive attitude. So I saw online Jack Canfield, Breakthrough to Success, and I thought, I've been very successful. I want to break through back to that, because I was so sad and not sure what I was going to do with all the knowledge that I had from my former career. So I went down to Arizona, and I met my publisher, now publisher, that you and I both have, Kate Butler. And she planted a seed in my mind to shine about possibly writing a story. And I didn't do it right away, but it stayed there. And I went on to become a certified Canfield trainer in the Success Principles. And I started writing books. And then the biggest thing was my dream as a K-12 reading specialist to be I read thousands of books to kids in all the elementary grades. And I wanted to write my own book and then write a song, because I'm a singer and a songwriter, that would cement the lesson of the book in the minds of the children forever.
And let's talk about this book as we end our conversation tonight. Okay. Tell me about this book and how our educators can use this inside the classroom, because it's not just for elementary school children. You've used this in middle school and high school.
I did it in high school in your class the other day. Yes. This book, people ask me the ages. I say 5 to 99. It is actually a message for all of us about the power of what we choose to say to our own minds. Remember my message: what you say to your mind will then say to you. It all starts with your words, which you have the power to choose. So I have had the pleasure to take this book out to former classrooms I've been in and share with the kids and do writing activities. It's all about what the boy in the story recognizes. He's based off a student I had that had a fixed mindset. He believed he couldn't read when he got to 3rd grade. I went over to him and I said, what would you love to do? And he says, Miss McCormick, I want to read a chapter book. I said, done. Tomorrow when you come, there will be a stack of them there. I got 4 libraries, every frog and toad book I could find. And he learned to read that year. In 5th grade, he walks back to me with a great big thick chapter book. And he said, Mrs. McCormick, look what I'm reading now. You were the first person that taught me how to read. I said, now wait a minute here. I only ask you a question. I ask you what you would love to do. And you told me, and you did the hard work, and you persevered. And I said, you can do that with anything you want to do. And he goes, I can, can't I? So he had a growth mindset. And that's what we have to give our children. That's what this book does for children. Because the boy is the hero in the story, because he discovers that he has these negative voices that are telling him, I can't, should have, what if, all those things that I just quit, all those things that children deal with, but every adult deals with them too. And so I just made it so that he could sing a song called Never Mind the Monkey Mind, because that's not really me. We are not our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. They are the result of all the things we take in through our 5 senses. But we're only consciously aware, Angela, of 1% of what comes into our brain. So that's why we have to get more mindful.
Well, and before we end our time together, this was such a wonderful conversation. When we talk about, and never mind the monkey mind, that actually, the monkey mind comes from a Buddhist philosophy that teaches us. So tell us about that before we end our conversation. And then there's a part of this book that we could actually do, everybody can do it. So talk about that too.
Okay, so the monkey mind is a term. I researched it, there's books on it. I'm actually developing a course online called To Master the Monkey Mind, to go from worry to wonder. It is when people, Angela, cannot stay in the present moment. They're either worried about something wrong that happened in the past, or they're anxious about what's happening in the future. So it is a way to be mindful, to stay in the present moment, to stay in joy and love and peace. And we need to teach our children this. And we need to teach them the techniques that allow that to happen. One of them is breathing. And when I went to your high school class, they loved that, didn't they? Angela walked in and they're all just, I was doing a meditation with one of the people that he's actually the meditation and mindfulness contributor on the Today Show. Jay Shetty is his name. And he has a book called Think Like a Monk. And he compares the monk mind with the monkey mind. And so there are things you can do to become more aware and to actually live your life on a whole new trajectory that people don't even know is possible. I just feel so blessed I discovered this at such a young age, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping children to discover that, and the adults and caregivers along the way.
Thank you so much, Denise, for taking this technique and putting it so that young people can start this process of mindfulness, and also the growth set mindset as well, but also too what you do to help educators so that they can stay strong and help children not only learn the basics, but learn how to use mindfulness in their emotions as well. And so I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll make sure we'll have your website there so people can reach out to you directly. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining us on Everybody with Angela Williamson. Viewers like you make this show possible. Join us on social media to continue this conversation. Good night and stay well.